Hi there. In this video, we're going to unpack the last three signal systems in Donald Smith's 12 signal systems of interpersonal communication. These signal systems comprise the behaviors layer of Dr. Smith's cultural onion. Remember that we perceive culture from the outside in. It's the inner layers of the onion, of the culture, that give shape to the rest of the culture, of the onion. But we perceive it from the outside in. So the outermost layers are behaviors, then social authorities, then experiences, and then the core. It's the core that shapes how we interpret our experiences, which then shape how we construct our notion of what are appropriate authorities and to whom must we listen, and that drives our behaviors. We've gotten through the first 9 behaviors, and now we're on to the last 3. So that group of 3 comprises the temporal, the spatial, and the olfactory. The temporal is a reference to how we perceive and inhabit time. So this has a lot of nuance here. Is time spent or past? The word, the verb that is used for moving through time is not spend here, it's past. And that's significant. That's significant because time is therefore not viewed. That word doesn't drive this. They use a word that means past and not a word that means spent because time is not viewed as a commodity, as your most valuable resource, or as a resource. Time passes, and you go with it. It's like a river that you're in, not a commodity that you control or that you invest. And so conversations about time or conversations about wasted time don't go anywhere. But time isn't described as wasted, but it can be described as empty. Like a meaningless stretch of past time as opposed to a wasted time like wasted money. Okay, so is time past or spent? Right now. I remember hearing a story when I was in school of a guy, when I was in college. This guy was he was working, I'm pretty sure, in Papua New Guinea, and there was a tribe that he was in, and somebody important had died. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm wondering when we're going to do this thing that we're supposed to do, this activity that was planned, we're going to do this thing. And they said, oh, we will, we're going to do it right now. And then nothing happened. And he said, okay, when are we going to do this thing? And they said, right, we're going to bury this guy right now. And then after we bury the guy, we'll do that thing. So we're doing the thing right now, or we're burying the guy? Yes, we're burying the guy right now. We're doing that thing right now. All right. Okay. So a little bit later on, a couple hours later, he's like, so when are we going to bury this guy? When's the funeral planned for? And they said, oh, we're going to plan a funeral. We're going to bury him right now. Okay. So the day continues, and finally it gets to be like nighttime, almost nighttime, and they bury the guy, and they look at him and they're like, okay, you ready to go? And he's like, what? Right now, he learned later, they're the same term for today, not much later, this afternoon, this morning, and this very moment, all the same term. Anything inside this day until the sun sets is right now, right? Different perception of time. Early and late. So how early is appropriate? Is early appropriate? How late is really late? 5 minutes here late isn't late. Some cultures have like a business culture and a social culture. In social culture, you can be much later than inside business culture. Sometimes being early communicates something. There's a story that I remember, again, from when I was in school. An American was telling this story, how he lived and worked in Egypt. And so he had a meeting with this guy scheduled for like, 2, lunch at 2. Lunch is late, so lunch at 2. And so he gets there, just to make sure that he's not late. He gets there at 1:30. So everybody knows everybody in this town, in this area, this neighborhood. And the other guy, the guy he's supposed to meet, the Egyptian, gets there at 2:30. So the American gets there at 1:30, and the Egyptian gets there at 2:30. And they're both upset. The American's upset that the Egyptian's late, and the Egyptian's upset that the American's early. But this is Egypt. The Egyptian is not late. When you set a lunch for 2 o'clock, that's when you're supposed to get there anywhere between 2 and 2:30. And 2:30 is totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. The only people who show up someplace early are the servants. So this American was communicating some really weird signal Like, why are you? What are you trying to like out good me, out holy me? Like, why are you? What's the point of getting here so early? Not my people that are supposed to take care of you and host you, make sure you get to the right place, and get to the right restaurant. They weren't even here, and you shamed me by getting here so early that we couldn't take care of you. And the Americans are like, you're a half hour late. What's wrong with you? I thought this was important. Is this not important to you? Are you an undisciplined person? Early and late. Waiting. I remember watching Kung Fu. The show. There's a show called Kung Fu when I was a kid, and the little guy is learning Kung Fu, and he's a half American, half Chinese, and he's in there lighting the candles in the temple, and he's been lighting candles for a long, like hundreds of candles, and this wizened Kung Fu master comes in and says, "Grasshopper, how long have you been at this?" And he goes, "A very long time, master." Doesn't look at him. "A very long time, master." And the Kung Fu master goes, "How long?" And the kid goes, "Not very long." And then continues lighting the candles. So there's a significant shift for him in his perception of time. How is waiting perceived? What's it feel like to stand in line? Does it feel, when you go to a government office and it takes all day, does it feel like that's like a war crime? Or is that normal? How is that supposed to feel? How do they feel about it? That's enough. You fly on different airlines. You'll notice that depending on what culture that airline's home base is in, that will determine how early or late your flight will take off and land almost 100% of the time. Try flying Lufthansa sometime. You're totally comfortable when you land because you're definitely a half hour early, but it's like a panic attack getting on the plane because they want to make sure they leave early. All right, spatial. How space is used. The German-Mexican tango is one of the most famous examples of this, but the story goes like this. A German and a Mexican meet for a business thing, and they're standing in a big, conference center or party or something. It's some kind of important conversation. And the Mexican gets right up to the guy so he can have a personal conversation. And the German keeps backing up into his personal space bubble. And the Mexican unconsciously keeps stepping forward into a region appropriate for a conversation between peers to make sure that it's not a conversation for everyone. We're talking. And the German keeps backing up to have the conversation at an appropriate and respectful distance. No one's planning, oh, he's far away, I'm now going to take a step to an appropriate conversational distance. And he's like, oh, he's too close. I must either punch you or kiss you when you're this close to me. I will take a step back into an appropriate conversational. No one's planning that. They're just unconsciously using the signal to try to convey, I want to be in this conversation with you. I don't want to fight you. But I want to be in an appropriate distance. And the Mexican's trying to say, I'm not trying to have a conversation with everyone, I'm trying to have a conversation with you. So at the end of this endeavor, that essentially they danced around the entire conference center, all the way around it. At the end, the Mexican reported feeling like the other guy was not interested and that he was kind of cold. And the German reported feeling like the Mexican was pushy and overbearing. It had nothing to do with what they were saying, or even the ideas they were espousing. It had everything to do with how close they tried to stand. Interesting, right? How much space communicates. Feng Shui is another excellent example of a combination of signal systems, where it's a Chinese idea of ordering your room or your house to kind of like get good fortune in and peace and tranquility and stability in, and like chaos and bad fortune out. So how they use the space and what they put in the space and what they put in particular spaces. Artifacts and spatial, right? How they put things in spaces and how they therefore inhabit that space communicates a great deal about how they perceive the universe. Olfactory, last one, taste and smell. This is the most believed and the least consciously used. I want to draw your attention to a couple of subtopics about this. This is one of my favorites. I like to lift weights, and I got involved when I lived in the States in a really excellent, like a discipline, a habit of lifting weights, and I stayed with it a lot. And looking back on it, I realized that most of my positive feelings about being at the Y had nothing to do with being in the gym or picking up heavy iron. It had everything to do with the fact that the Y smelled like cinnamon. You walked in, and you immediately felt very good. because there was a scent that was associated with joy, filling the air, keeping the stink down, but filling the air. That's a Christmas scent. And I didn't feel like it was Christmas time, but in my head, in my bones, that's a Christmas scent. And it just makes you feel happy. If you're an American who has experienced cinnamon at Christmas, it makes you feel happy, right? Sometimes you can use this signal. Oh, I didn't do, yeah. Sometimes you can use this signal in combination with another signal to be able to convey multiple messages at the same time. And sometimes this is an excellent, this next example is an excellent one for conscious contradiction, where you're intentionally using one signal to create space and using another signal to convey the truth. So again, in Africa, a boy meets girl, likes girl, wants to marry her. So to marry this girl, he has to tell his mom and dad, can I marry that girl? Yeah, we kind of like it. Okay, mom, would you then go talk to her mom about me marrying the girl? Because in this culture, mom talks to mom talks to dad, and they agree, and mom goes and talks to mom, and mom and dad then will agree, or mom will just decide over here, mom and the girl will decide, and then they will decide right there if there's going to be a marriage. Because a wedding and a marriage actually binds two families together inside a larger tribe, and this has socioeconomic significance and consequences for everybody in the tribe after that. So it's not just I love her and love always wins. Well, starving wins too. Starving wins. So sometimes decisions got to be made about more than one level. And in this cultural setting, mom asks mom. So mom says, I will go and ask her mom. I will do this for you. I think it's a good match. So she goes to the girl's mom. And the girl's mom knows she's coming. She knows why she's coming. And the boy's mom comes in and says, we're very interested in your daughter for our son. We think it'd be a very good match. It'd be good for the community. It'd be good for them, good for our families. We like your family. We respect your family. You're well-spoken. We'd like to talk about this. Can we talk about this? And the woman says, yes, but let me get the refreshments. The girl's mom says, yes, but let me get the refreshments. In this culture, when you are having this conversation, tea and cookies are brought out to have the conversation. You have tea and cookies. Tea and cookies. So the girl's mom comes back with tea and nicely chopped up fruit, nice spread of fruit, bananas, right? And then she says, I also like this match. I think it's an excellent idea. We also respect your family. We've been hoping actually that our daughter would catch your son's eye, and they can get together. I think it'd be a great match for them. It'd be a good match for both of our families, and I think we should move forward with this. How can we get started planning the wedding? And the boy's mom says, well, we'll talk about that. Like, well, this is great. It's been very good. Let's continue talking, and we'll keep in touch. Boy's mom goes back and says, she said no. Right? That's not what you heard. What you heard was she said yes, and it's a great match, but she brought out tea and bananas. Tea and cookies is yes. Tea and anything else is no. The words protected everyone's pride and made sure no one was shamed. The bananas said no. Significant, right? But sometimes the contradiction is unconscious. And here are two examples from an American context. When there's a group of people and you think somebody is like a team, or it's like a bunch of criminals, and they think that there's a cop undercover in their midst. It wasn't uncommon in like movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s in the States to hear someone say, I smell a rat. I smell a rat. Everyone looks like we're on the same team. But down inside, my instincts are saying someone's a liar. I don't believe this, right? That olfactory signal, that's language describing how my instincts down deep are telling me that all the other signals are lying to me. Another example of this is when someone says something smells fishy. Like it all seems fine. This person seems trustworthy. This business deal seems like it's going to be good, but something smells fishy. All right. So today was the temporal, the spatial, and the olfactory. Those are the last three signal systems. In our next video, I'm going to give you a little bit of coaching on how to observe these so that you can get the most bang for your buck. Thanks.